Ezekiel 28, 1 through 19. Devotional focus verse. Thine heart was lifted up because of thy beauty. Thou hast corrupted thy wisdom by reason of thy brightness. I will cast thee to the ground. I will lay thee before kings, that they may behold thee. Ezekiel 28, 17. Excess and moderation are words that can describe two different modes of living. The word excess is defined as an amount of something that is more than necessary, permitted, or desirable, undue or immoderate indulgence. Moderation, on the other hand, reflects avoidance of such extremes and a policy of enough is enough. As parents of teenagers, we sometimes wrestled with helping the young adults in our household understand the value of moderation in a variety of areas. For example, one of our children concluded that his high school classmates were more affluent than we were based upon the vehicles owned by their families. He declared that we were poor because the car we drove was of lesser value than the ones they drove. We assured him that God had provided very well for us and that our vehicle fit in our budget, met our needs satisfactorily, and provided us with a reliable method of getting around. Why should we spend many thousands of dollars more to drive a status symbol? Today, we smile inwardly as we observe our children, who are now adults, passing on the same principles of moderate living to their children. The Prince of Tyre did not exemplify moderation. He had advantages beyond most people in the world of his time and had a very high opinion of himself to go along with those advantages. In today's text, we read that his heart was lifted up. He arrogantly considered himself as a god and assumed that he had become wealthy by his own wisdom and understanding. Rather than applying principles of humility and moderation to his life and kingdom, he thought of himself as wiser than Daniel and gathered gold and silver into his treasuries. He chose to live in excess, pridefully elevating himself and his position to the level of a god. It's noteworthy that God didn't condemn the Prince of Tyre for his riches. His own wisdom had brought him wealth, but that led to vanity and self-importance, and this inordinate pride drew God's judgment. Whatever our monetary resources, material possessions, or position in life, we must never allow pride or excess to rule us. Instead, we want to exemplify humility and moderation, understanding that everything we have comes from the hand of God. Our desire should be to elevate and honor Him, not ourselves. Background information. Today's text concludes the proclamation of judgment on Tyre that is recorded in Ezekiel 26:1 through 28:19. This portion is directed at the Prince of Tyre, or the King of Tyre. In the book of Ezekiel, prince and king are used interchangeably, as indicated in verses 2 and 12 of this chapter. Many historians, including the Jewish historian Josephus, have identified this man as Ithobaal III. Ithobaal's Hebrew name was Ethbaal, which means with Baal. He was one of numerous rulers of Tyre whose names referred to Baal, their god of weather and fertility. Josephus wrote that Nebuchadnezzar besieged Tyre for 13 years, with at least 7 of those years occurring during the reign of Ithobaal I. The fact that he survived the siege undoubtedly added to his feelings of superiority and invulnerability that brought God's condemnation. Verses 1 through 10 of chapter 28 focus on the ruler's sin of pride. The prince said of himself, "I am a god," in verse 2, and gloried in his supposed wisdom and greatness. Because he had an exalted opinion of himself and thought he was invincible, judgment was proclaimed against him. This judgment would come at the hands of strangers from the terrible of the nations, in verse 7, who would destroy the beauty and splendor of Tyre. The pit, in verse 8, is the standard Old Testament term indicating the place where lost souls go after death. In verses 11 through 19, The lamentation shifts from a description of the pride that resulted in judgment on the prince of Tyre to a lament that contains many allusions to the sin in the Garden of Eden. Bible scholars interpret these verses in a variety of ways. Some feel that a figurative parallel is being drawn in these verses between the pride and overthrow of Ithabel to the pride and fall of Satan from heaven. Others propose that the highly figurative language in these verses was based on a paradise story of that era. Still others see it as a literal description of the fall of Satan. However this passage is interpreted, the key point is that the lament contains a stern warning against pride. As a priest, Ezekiel must have recoiled at the audacity of a king elevating himself to godlike status when he was a created being like everyone else. Conclusion. Let's ask God to reveal and remove any hint of pride and desire for excess from our hearts, and help us cultivate godly humility and moderation.
Ezekiel chapter 28. The word of the Lord came again unto me, saying, Son of man, say unto the prince of Tyre, Thus saith the Lord God, because thine heart is lifted up, and thou hast said, I am a god, I sit in the seat of God, in the midst of the seas, yet thou art a man, and not God, though thou set thine heart as the heart of God. Behold, thou art wiser than Daniel, there is no secret that they can hide from thee. With thy wisdom and with thine understanding thou hast gotten thee riches, and hast gotten gold and silver into thy treasures. By thy great wisdom and by thy traffic hast thou increased thy riches, and thine heart is lifted up because of thy riches. Therefore thus saith the Lord God, because thou hast set thine heart as the heart of God. Behold, therefore I will bring strangers upon thee, the terrible of the nations, and they shall draw their swords against the beauty of thy wisdom, and they shall defile thy brightness. They shall bring thee down to the pit, and thou shalt die the deaths of them that are slain in the midst of the seas. Wilt thou yet say before him that slayeth thee, I am God? But thou shalt be a man, and no God, in the hand of him that slayeth thee. Thou shalt die the deaths of the uncircumcised by the hand of strangers, for I have spoken it, saith the Lord God. Moreover the word of the Lord came unto me, saying, Son of man, take up a lamentation upon the king of Tyre, and say unto him, Thus saith the Lord God, Thou sealest up the sum, full of wisdom, and perfect in beauty. Thou hast been in Eden the garden of God, every precious stone was thy covering, the sardius, topaz, and the diamond, the beryl, the onyx, and the jasper, the sapphire, the emerald, and the carbuncle, and gold. The workmanship of thy tabrets and of thy pipes was prepared in thee in the day that thou wast created. Thou art the anointed cherub that covereth, and I have set thee so, thou wast upon the holy mountain of God, thou hast walked up and down in the midst of the stones of fire. Thou wast perfect in thy ways from the day that thou wast created, till iniquity was found in thee. By the multitude of thy merchandise they have filled the midst of thee with violence, and thou hast sinned. Therefore I will cast thee as profane out of the mountain of God, and I will destroy thee, O covering cherub, from the midst of the stones of fire. Thine heart was lifted up because of thy beauty, thou hast corrupted thy wisdom by reason of thy brightness. I will cast thee to the ground, I will lay thee before kings, that they may behold thee. Thou hast defiled thy sanctuaries by the multitude of thine iniquities, by the iniquity of thy traffic, therefore will I bring forth a fire from the midst of thee. It shall devour thee, and I will bring thee to ashes upon the earth in the sight of all them that behold thee. All they that know thee among the people shall be astonished at thee, thou shalt be a terror, and never shalt thou be any more.